One last thing I want to ask. If you're the GM of the Mets, are you moving Pete Alonso?
No, I can't. Now, I'm going to say that on one side of my mouth. On the other side of my mouth, I'm going to listen to offers. Okay?
And I'm in love with the good life. Can't give it up. Make it to the top and keep climbing. I wanna live it up. The good life. I'm coming up. I'm coming up. The good life. Good life. Oh, good life. Good life. Good life. Good life.
Boom, coming in hot, Chichi. This is going to be a great one today, man.
Case, I don't wear the Converse All-Star Legend shirt unless we have All-Star Legends on. So today, and let's go.
Dude. Hey, man, this guy, former GM of 16 years, executive of the year. You can see him on CBS Sports, listen to him on MLB Network Radio, read him in The Athletic, man. Some great stuff that he writes. One of his really good article just recently, one of the best insiders and analysts in the game, and also a dear friend of mine, man. I love this guy. I'm forever indebted to him. A guy that traded for me, a 23-year-old prospect, traded his number one starter, Dave Burba, 14 hours before opening day for Sean Casey to go to Cincinnati. Who would do that? I got to ask him that, but let's bring in my good friend and one of the best in the business, Jim Bowden. So, Jimmy.
Hey, Sean, great to be back with you. Yeah, I'll never forget that. So I went and saw you in the Arizona Fall League, and I watched you hit line drives all over the place, and I'm like, that guy's going to win a batting title someday. You want to talk about bat speed? You want to talk about hitting it on the sweet spot consistently, barrel, everything was there. And then, of course, we got the makeup and the character, which is how you want to build teams, right? You want to build it with great people. Sean, the top of that list. So you should have seen the reaction from my owner, Marge Schott, at the time when I called her and I said, I want to trade our opening day starter. She said, well, the game is tomorrow. I said, I know, but this is for the future. I said, we got no chance to win this year anyway. We got to rebuild. Why wait to the deadline? I can get a future all-star first baseman right now for opening day starter, who, by the way, should really be a reliever and not a starter. So anyway, I tried to get a second player in the deal. I couldn't get it. And I'm like, I'm pulling the trigger anyway. This deal long-term is going to be too good for Cincinnati. And I went, and Sean, you became a Red. It was awesome.
Dude, Jimmy, I that day looking back, when I was called into Mark Shapiro's office, John Hart comes on the mic, and he's like on the phone. He's like, hey, listen, we got good news and bad news. He's like, bad news is you've been traded. He's like, but the good news is you're going to the big leagues with the Cincinnati Reds. You've been traded to the Reds. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, who have I been traded for? Like, they traded Dave Burba, their opening day starter for you. I was like, man, this GM's awesome. I was like, I love this guy. He's incredible. And then, when I got there, Jimmy, like I said, man, forever great indebted to you because of the personality you are, man. You're a risk taker. You're a go-getter. You're an outside the box thinker. You were the youngest GM ever in the game at 31 years old back in 1992. You think differently, and you still do as an analyst, and as an insider. So, I'd love to look back really quick at that 99 team because it was we've had a ton of those guys on. It was my favorite team, and we were picked dead last, coming into that season. But the way you put together the team was incredible. Can you just go back to that team and what you think were the main components of how do we end up winning 96 games and I really brought a lot of life to Cincinnati?
Yeah, to put some history on it. So the teams that I had built in 94 and 95 both finished in first place. And in 95, we ended up losing to the Braves in the NLCS. But financially, we couldn't keep that team together. And so we had to break it down. And that was tough to do. So we broke it down with the goal of being ready to win in 2000 or 2001. So we broke it down and tried to rebuild it. And so we started doing a lot of these sell trades, right? Like we traded impact closer Jeff Shaw. He went for Paul Konerko. And then we took Konerko and traded him for Mike Cameron because we had you. And I couldn't have Konerko and you, right? I chose you. And so I got Cameron.
Thank you.
Then I traded another reliever, Jeff Brantley, who I thought would blow out pretty soon, which he did. Trade for Dimitri Young, get another 300 hitter. And so it was those kind of trades, one after another. And the other thing I wanted to do is I had a team in 93. I didn't like the people. Okay. They just weren't great people. A lot of them. It was
Right.
very uncomfortable. And the thing I said is never again. I'm going to have a clubhouse of good people, fun people that want to win and have a good time doing it as well. And that 99 team did all of that. Right. And then we were able to trade for a starting pitcher that we needed at the deadline, which is extremely important. But the team was so fun. You guys went out to dinner all the time together. You partied together, probably too much. I got a few calls from the commissioner's office. I wasn't happy about it. But the thing that was amazing is that I normally didn't go down to the clubhouse after games in my GM career unless I was making a player move, or an injury or something to that effect. Because, the clubhouse is for the players, right? It's not for GMs. That's what it's for. But I had to go down after every win with this 99 team because they had this thing where they would blare the music and then they would do individual dancing in the middle. So they'd all get around in a circle. And Sean Casey was the star. Casey was the guy. And so I had 5 boys. They were all little at the time. What did they want to do after games? They want to go see Sean Casey dance. They didn't care about the double and the homer he hit. Oh, Dad, if we win, we get to go to the clubhouse and watch Case dance, or do a wrestling move, one or the other. So that was the highlight. The team was a lot of fun. To this day, I'll always remember Aaron Boone was on that team. Pokey Reese was on that team. Of course, Barry Larkin was on all my teams. But that was a really fun team, Case, and great memories.
Dude, and one thing about that team, Jimmy, I thought was, how you pieced together rotation. You had Harnish at 1. You made the trade for Nagel with Brett Boone to get him over there. I think that was huge. I feel like our rotation was better than people thought. But I felt like this is the first time when, getting up to the big leagues, I thought, wow, how important a bullpen is. Because the back end of the pen with Sullivan, Scott Williamson, and Danny Graves, I just felt like our stars were able to bridge the gap to that pen. But I feel like Jack McKeon threw those guys out there every night for good reason. And when you look at the way teams are put together now, that's the big thing. Got to have horses at the back end of that pen, 3 or 4 guys. Was that a big part of it, being, a team that you couldn't go out and spend the big money for maybe big-time starters, but you put together an incredible bullpen?
Yeah, I mean, look, back then we knew I knew 2 things I couldn't compete with, right? I can't afford the closer, right? The impact closer. Right. And I couldn't afford starters 1, 2, and 3, right? We didn't have the money to do it. So how am I going to beat teams, right? So I had to beat teams in innings 6, 7, and 8, right? If we were going to win, I have to beat you every 6, 7, and 8th inning. If we're tied or it's close, I can beat you in those 3 innings because I'm going to build a better bullpen than you did. And I wasn't the only one to do that. Kevin Towers, the late Kevin Towers of the Padres, well known for doing the same kind of thing. And it was kind of before our time. Now today, everybody, right? But back then, people weren't doing it, and we were focused on it. And we didn't spend money for closers, and yet we had one Rolaids relief after another. I traded John Smiley to get Danny Graves, and he won. I signed Jeff Brantley, who was the 3rd reliever in San Francisco, made him a closer. He won the award. I got Jeff Shaw, who was the 4th reliever behind Wetland, Rojas, and Tim Scott in Montreal. He became a closer and won it. So we would find guys that were set up roles with other teams, bring them in, make them closers. They'd win the Rolaids. We'd trade them for another star and to go do it again. And that was like our magic formula of how to compete in a small market.
Yeah.
I won Executive of the Year in 1999 because of that. That kind of philosophy, but it was really more about the human beings in the room, and not being afraid to go against the grain and go against the industry.
Jim, you mentioned
go ahead, Chinch.
I'm sorry. You mentioned you had a plan where we thought 2000 or 2001 was when we were going to be that team. And then obviously the 99 Reds were as good as it was. So it's interesting, like 2015, the Royals had that same thought. Then the Cubs had that same thought, and those guys won the World Series in those years. So how as a GM do you identify we need to pivot because this team's better than we thought it was? Is that how that worked that year?
Yeah. So this is how it happens. Okay. If you want to go along the line of the perfect progression of a farm system and young players, right? They will always hit the year before the algorithm says they're going to hit. That's what happens. And so whether it be the Nationals or the Cubs or the Orioles last year, we all know when you're that good. We have an idea when you're going to hit, but normally in baseball over the last 25 years, that team will always hit a year before. So then that's what happened to us. Now you can't ever guarantee that that many young players are going to hit it the same year. Nobody can. So the reason we didn't think it would be 99 is the fact that who's going to think that 5 young guys are all going to have their breakout years at the same time, right? 2 will, maybe 3, but not all 5. And in our case, that's what happened. So that's why we went a year early.
That was incredible. You go back to that team too, Jimmy. I just want to, I want to, one more thing is, how good was Pokey Reese defensively?
A Gold Glove. I mean,
Yeah.
he a special guy. You know, Barry Larkin's a Hall of Fame shortstop. Interestingly, though, his range was to his left, not to his right. Special range to his left, not to his right. So you had to have a third baseman. And whether I had Tony Fernandez or Aaron Boone, I always had to have a third baseman that had special range to the left because then no one would notice lack of range to the right, right? And then it was interesting when we had Brett Boone. Brett Boone, ironically, his best range was to his left, not to his right. So that worked because Larkin had the range there. And that was before we did the infield shifts. But Barry you had a ball up the middle. Barry Larkin had it over the back. He was getting the balls that only Ozzie Smith was getting to, right? And he won he would have won more Gold Gloves if Ozzie Smith wasn't in the league at shortstop. But yeah, I mean, I think we put a lot of effort because I knew I was going to have some bangers at first and right and left, including you, that wasn't going to win a Gold Glove for me at that point. But I had to make sure that I had the defense in center and at third, short, second to win, to help the pitching staff win, and that's what we did.
It was textbook. One of the biggest, obviously, you'll go down in Reds history and baseball history as making the trade for Ken Griffey Jr. when he was basically Michael Jordan in baseball. I mean, this guy was the best player in the game, and I think it turned the world of baseball and sports upside down when everyone was like, Griffey's leaving Seattle to come to Cincinnati. Can you look back at that and tell us, like, your emotions on that day? When did you think the deal was going to get done? And, you know, it was historic.
Yeah, so let's go back and kind of figure out how it happened. So Junior wanted to go to Cincinnati. He wanted to go home. He was tired of the flights. He wanted to be near family. So he and his agent really made this happen. So I had all the leverage, right? He was only going to go to Cincinnati. Right. So I knew that I was going to be able to make the deal. And, you know, it was going to be painful because one of my favorite people is Mike Cameron. And I knew that he and Brett Tomko were going to be the leaders of it. But we had the winter meetings that year were in Anaheim, California. And I felt like I could have closed the deal before I got on the plane, but I wanted to go to the podium while the world was watching and make the announcement there. So I'm honestly, I'm pretty cocky. I get on the plane, I land, I have a stretch limo pick me up at LAX. It was John Wayne Airport, not LAX. And John Wayne, I had a stretch limo pick me up. And I get in the back seat with a glass of fresh squeezed orange juice and the LA Times. And the headlines were, Bowden, I came to get Griffey, not Goofy. Because of course, Goofy's name is right there. And you want to talk about cocky. I'm sitting in the back going, I'm about to be a star, guys. I'm about to be the best known GM in baseball history. Wait till this happens, right? The phone rings as I'm pulling into the hotel, and it's John Allen, who at the time is my direct boss, who works for ownership. He worked for Carl Lindner. And he said, Jim, pull out of the Griffey trade. Carl Lindner doesn't want to do it. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, make sure it doesn't come back on me or him or you're fired. So you make sure it's baseball reasons. I said, how am I going to make sure it's baseball reasons? Everyone knows that the players are going to go in this deal. Well, if you want your job, you'll find a way. And so I walked into my suite of all my top executives, Gene Bennett, Larry Barton Jr., all these veteran, all these 60-year-old scouts. And I said, gentlemen, we're going to pull out of Griffey. They want too much, and there's no way I can do Cameron or Tomko for them. Like, what are you talking about? What is wrong with you? And I had to eat it. And it was the worst 5 days of my life. So I flew home. I considered resigning. Didn't want to do this anymore. Are you kidding me? How does that happen? And then I decided to fight. I'm like, I'm going to fight now. I'm going to get the media on my side, and we're going to get pressure on ownership to do this deal. And so I started that campaign. And they felt it. And then all of a sudden, the fans of Cincinnati made ownership well aware of they wanted Griffey. And then I'll never forget closing the deal. I was in my office in Sarasota, Florida. I was looking out the palm trees when Pat Gillett called, and he finally relented on the last player in this deal. And we were able to make the deal. Carl Lindner sent his private jet to pick up both Ken Griffey and myself. We flew back to Cincinnati, landed at Lunken Airport, and I had never been through anything like this in my life, but there was Rolls-Royce convertible for Mr. Lindner and Ken Griffey Jr. to drive to the ballpark. He got stretch limos, 3 of them for the rest of us. We got in the stretch limo. I looked up in the air, and there were 3 helicopters. All the news stations were there with cameras. They followed us like the O.J. Simpson Bronco drive. They followed us
No way.
to the Crosley room at the ballpark, and I got to the podium, and it was the most packed I've ever seen the media for a Cincinnati Reds press conference ever. I mean, there wasn't even enough room for anybody. And I went to the podium. I said, baseball is back in Cincinnati. And that was the highlight of my career right there when I said those words.
Wow, man, what a story. What a story. And I remember as a player being like, let's go. We got Ken Griffey Jr. And, you know, just one of the coolest things ever to have to play 6 years with Junior and, you know, his greatness. But, you know, for you to make that deal and in that story, you know, it's incredible, man. That's incredible. Would you say that's your best, you know, what was your best moment of your career as a GM?
Oh, that was clear. It was a 1995 case. We had about like a 1-game lead over Houston, but I didn't have enough starting pitching to win. And within an 8-day period, I traded for David Wells, Mark Portugal, Dave Burba, and Gold Glove center fielder Darren Lewis within 8 days at the deadline. And I took a team that was in a race with Houston, and I blew their doors off. And the next 2 months, I just waited to get to the NLCS to face Atlanta, and that's what we did. So that was the highlight of my career for sure. And it was a lot of fun because I was determined to get the first starting pitcher, right? And I wanted David Cone. That was the guy I wanted from Toronto. I had to get, so I went down to Marge Schott, the owner, and I said, Marge, there's 3 pitchers that are available right now, okay? David Cone, who's the best one available, but he makes 5 point some million, which at that point was like the highest paid pitcher available. David Wells was making $3 million, and Abbott was making $1.5 million. And I said, look, Abbott has 1 arm. That's not going to work when you got to hit in the National League. So he's out. I said, David Cone, I know we can't afford him, doesn't fit the budget, so I think we should go for Wells. And she said, well, who's the best one, honey? And I said, well, Cone's the best one of the 3. She said, go get me David Cone. I looked at her so
What?
Yeah, because she was so tough on money. I left her office case. I ran as hard as I've ever ran in my entire life to get to my office. I picked up the phone. I called the Tigers, and I said, we're going to make not the Tigers, the Blue Jays. I called, Pat Gillick was the GM then. We're going to make the deal for Cone. He said, you're too late. I just traded him to Steinbrenner. And
Oh, no.
yeah, Paul Beeston actually made the deal with Steinbrenner. It wasn't even Pat, but
Oh, my
that was
God.
done. So I had to run back and say, we missed on it. Can I go get Wells? She said, yes, honey, go get him. I ran down the hall. I traded C.J. Nikowski and a player named later, which was Mark Lewis, my third baseman. But back then I had a loophole, so I got to keep Lewis. They changed the rule after that year because of me. But I kept Lewis for that year and then gave them Lewis at the end of the year. So it was Nikowski and Lewis for David Wells. And then 5 days later, you know, that's one starter. That's really all I needed. Smiley, Shurik, and Wells. That's good enough to run the team, right? But then I got greedy, and I was talking to San Francisco about Portugal and Burba, and they really wanted Deion Sanders, who was one of my favorite human beings ever.
Best.
But we started talking, and I was like, well, if you're going to get Deion, I got to have Burba, Portugal, and your Gold Glove center fielder, Darren Lewis. And so Bob Quinn was the GM of the Giants at the time. He said, yeah, we're not doing that. There's no way. So I said, okay, that's fine. Because I didn't have to do anything else. So I get home that night, and about 11 o'clock Eastern time, Peter McGowan, the owner of the Giants, calls me directly. And he says, look, we got to have more than Deion. I can't do Deion for 2 starting pitchers and a Gold Glove center fielder. You got to have more. So I started giving him names of guys that were not prospects, but had big minor league numbers. Ricky Pickett, McCarthy, like all these guys that were not even prospects, but all had minor league stats, right? So I ended up giving like 4 or 5 of those guys, and McGowan did the deal with me. Boom, done. That was my favorite trade deadline ever, and that was the most impact I ever had on a singular club.
Wow.
That
wow.
changed the entire dynamic of the late 90s, early 2000s, if you guys get Cone right there. That changes the entire baseball world is different because of that. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I enjoyed it. And, back then, now these people have these front offices with like assistant GMs and farm directors and scouting directors. You got to understand, when I was there, I ran everything. Okay, so Marge, my first year as a GM, Marge gets suspended for a year from Major League Baseball for insensitive comments. So they wanted to appoint someone to run the team, and she said, "Oh, only if Jim runs it." So I ran baseball, player development, scouting. I was the GM, the assistant GM, and the farm director all at the same time. I ran the business side, the accounting department, the PR department, the marketing department. Yeah, I did the entire organization by myself. And you wonder why I'm out of the business now. Geez.
Wow.
Yeah,
would you ever, Jimmy, would you ever want to get back into the business? Would you ever want to? No.
Look, I have children, a wife, I have 2 dogs. I love my family and friends.
You got a great life.
I love having a life. Now, that being said, if someone wants to give me $10 million a year, I'm in.
Right. Exactly. That'll get you in. So I want you to put your GM hat on for us now, because baseball there's so many things going on. The deadline coming up. One of the teams I want to ask you about before we get into what's happening now is the Tampa Bay Rays. As a former GM and being in a small market like you were with the Reds, and there's so many teams out there like the Pirates and all these other teams that are, oh man, we just can't compete in the small market. But the Rays do it every single year. They're right where they need to be. It feels like when players go there, they go to another level, especially as pitchers. How are they able to do what they do, and other teams can't necessarily do it on a consistent basis as they do?
Well, it starts with Eric Neander, the president of baseball ops, and he's been the key guy there. He was the key guy when Andrew Friedman was there. He was the key guy when Chaim Bloom was there. Eric Neander's IQ is off the charts. He's a Wall Street guy. He knows what he's doing, but they're ahead of the game in analytics. They're ahead of the game in technology. They understand players. They know how to make players the best they can be. They know how to utilize their strength to get the most out of players. They do a really good job of studying players, what they're doing with other teams, how they're performing, and they do really well at predetermining how they can make that player better than the organization that has them. They're also not afraid to trade the players, 2 or 3 years away from free agency, and turn it over when their trade value is the highest it can possibly be. They rely on scouts. They rely on analytics. They rely on science. They rely on the human element. And they're just really special. You talk about executives in the game that, are, legendary. You can be legendary different ways. When I was growing up in the game, it was John Schultz and Pat Gillick. They were the 2 best. And then we went through Theo Epstein, who was the next best in that next generation that's special. You talk about this generation, you're going to have to start with Eric Neander and Andrew Friedman and guys like that. And a lot of the work that they do and the success they have is behind the scenes. They do have special formulas that aren't shared. And a lot of times, because today there's so much transparency with social media, and you can get a lot of analytics off websites, but the Tampa Bay Rays, they don't use Fangraphs, right? They're not using Baseball Savant. They have their own systems, their own algorithms that they build, that they go with, that's better than what the public sees, and it's better than what most of the major league teams see.
Wow, that's a great answer, because that answers a lot right there. You're right. They're just a couple steps ahead of everybody else. You wrote a great article for The Athletic about teams under pressure at the deadline. And I wanted to look at that as far as like the 6 teams, we talk about in that article. What about the White Sox, man? Because, they're in a situation where they have Crochet, out there on the mound that's had an incredible year, but he's never thrown the kind of innings that he has now. You have Luis Robert in center field. That could be a game-changing bat for some teams. if you're the GM of the White Sox, what do you do here? I mean, those are also two guys that you could build around too. Do you trade those guys? Are you trying to, is Getz trying to get the farm system up? What would you do?
Okay, those two players aren't going to be there when they're ready to win. Okay, so the timeline for them to win, in the olden days, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it would take 5 to 7 years to rebuild, right? That's the timeline it took the Cubs, timeline it took the Orioles, the Astros, and the Nationals. All of them, 5 to 7 years. Go look it up. Okay, but the difference was when they were all losing 100 games, they got to draft Bryce Harper, Steven Strasburg, Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson. They got to draft Chris Bryant in Chicago. Houston got to take Carlos Correa. That doesn't work anymore. We have a lottery system because they don't want, the last CBA, we don't want people to tank. So you can't do it anymore. So the timeline that's now was 5 to 7 is now 7 to 9 years. The White Sox have a long way to go. Their farm system isn't good. It's not. It's one of the weaker ones in baseball. They're in the bottom third in farm system. So how are they going to win? How are they going to turn it around? There's only one way. And, the owner, Jerry Reinsdorf, isn't going to play checkbook baseball to do it. And by the way, free agents don't want to go there because players don't want to lose, right? You can overpay if you want. Someone may take your money, but in general, you can't win that way. So how are you going to win? You're going to have to take Garrett Crochet, Eric Fetty, Michael Kopech, Lewis Robert, Andrew Vaughn, and you're going to have to try to turn Crochet into 4 players, turn Robert into 4 players, turn Fetty into 2 players, turn Vaughn into 2 players, and you're going to have to build that way. That's the only way to do it. So Chris Getz has to trade them. If he doesn't, he'll have failed. Chris Getz has more pressure on him than any GM in baseball. He's a rookie GM, but he's got more pressure than anyone because if he does nothing, where are they going to be in the offseason? We're just all going to predict 120 losses next year too.
Yeah.
Chris Getz, his career's on the line. His legacy's on the line. His future's on the line. Look, I remember my first year as a GM was 1993. And we finished 5th place, 23 games out. And Marge Schock came to me and said to me when the season ended, she walked in my office and looked at me and said, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to bring you back. Most people don't want me to. Most people want me to fire you right now. I'm going to bring you back for a year. But if you don't finish in first, you're going to be fired next year. And I want you to know that right now. When you go to bed at night, I want you to know that. And I said, yes, ma'am. Thanks for keeping me another year. I finished in first place the next 2 years because I had to. I had to, Sean, because I would never have gotten another chance. Chris Getz has to know. If he fails on these trades, he's not going to get another shot. This is his legacy. He's got more pressure than anyone. It's time for him to step up and get it done.
Wow. That is Chris Getz. Let's go, man. Get some deals made. That sounds like you get 12 good players back in return, hopefully. What about a team like the Blue Jays? You got some real problems here. I mean, you got not a great farm system. You have Guerrero and Bichette who haven't signed yet long-term deals. They're sitting there. You have Justin Turner. You have, a couple, Gosman. You just have a couple people a couple pieces there that you could move, but you still want to be in it because you're in the East and you got a big payroll. What do the Blue Jays do?
What are they doing, Sean? That's the better question. What in the world are they doing? First of all, as I said, the minute Jose Barrios was taken out of that playoff game, and the minute the manager started blaming the front office, the manager should have been fired. Okay, you decide to bring him back because who knows behind the scenes what really happened. Right. So at the end of May, early June, Schneider should have been fired, and you should have seen if a new leader, a new voice could have turned this team around, right? But instead, Ross Atkins came on my show on MLB Network Radio and said he's part of the solution, not the problem. I said, okay, that's fine. Then if he is part of the solution, then the problem is the team. So then that's the GM then, right? I mean, you have to sit there and understand where you are. Now, you have to extend Guerrero and Bichette. They're both free agents after 2025. If you don't have them signed by the trade deadline, you got to trade them. So now let's look at where they are. And by the way, Ross Atkins told me clearly it doesn't make any sense to him to trade him, so he's not going to. Okay. So what are you going to do? I want you to think this through. If you're not going to trade him now, if you trade him in the offseason, you'll get nothing close to what you can get now. You trade him next trade deadline for 2 months, you're not going to get much. So if you are going to trade him, you got to trade him now. And if you're going to extend him, honestly, you better extend him now when you have a little bit of leverage. So if you trade him, you're going to get 7 or 8 players back to rebuild. Okay, so let's just say you hold on to them. So what's the next step? Okay, you better see what Kikuchi can get you, what Kevin Gosman can get you, what Chris Bassett can get you. You don't have any other position players any value. Justin Turner's having a down year. There's not even interest in him. What you have is role players on that lineup. Besides Bichette and Guerrero, you're just, even Varshall's a fourth outfielder. He's not going to hit. He's a great defender, good power, not going to hit. So what are you doing? And you have no farm system. Your best prospect, Ricky Tiedemann, the pitcher's hurt. Orelvis Martinez, so-called your best position player, we'll see in time. Oh, he got suspended for PEDs. What are you doing? How are you going to win? You think you're going to go play checkbook baseball? People aren't going to go to Toronto to finish in last place next year. They're not going to sign with you over the Orioles and the Yankees and the Red Sox, who are all ready to win for the next few years. So what are you going to do in Toronto? I don't get what they're doing, Case. I don't get it. I know what they should do.
Yeah.
They should absolutely sell a fire sale and rebuild this thing and do it the right way. And the only time to do it is right here, right now. And I said this last year. Perry Manassian and the Angels had to trade Ohtani for 5 guys. He might have gotten 6 prospects. I said, that's your only chance because you're not going to be able to re-sign him. And he thought he could. I don't know how. He thought he was a contending team. He didn't look at his schedule. He didn't understand that he beat bad teams in July at the deadline, and his schedule was getting hard in August. He'd be knocked out by August 15th, which he was. What is he doing? Now look at the Angels. We'll see in 7 years. 7 years, Artie Moreno. Bye-bye. And by the way, if Toronto holds on to these guys at the deadline, bye, Toronto. I'll see you in 2030 because that's the next time you'll be relevant.
So you wouldn't sign Guerrero to a long-term deal?
I would sign Guerrero and Bichette right now, right here.
Right here, okay.
I will not let him walk and get nothing for him. I will not let that happen. I want to keep Guerrero and Bichette. Let's get it done.
Right. Wow. What do the Yankees need? Do they need anything?
3 things. Three
Yeah.
things. They need another starting pitcher. Carlos Rodon's ERA is 9 in his last 5 starts. I don't trust his shoulder one bit. I don't know what Garrett Cole is going to be the rest of the year. I'm praying, I'm hoping. They need another starter, though. Clark Schmidt coming back, good. You need another one. I'll take another reliever. One more. Tanner Scott of the Marlins, be fine. I need second base or third base. I got to get offense from one or the other. Gleyber Torres hasn't hit. DJ LeMahieu hasn't hit. Bottom half of the line. I'm okay with Ben Rice at first. Love him. I think he'll be fine. I think when Rizzo comes back, he'll back up Rice. I don't think he takes his job. Stanton can still hit some homers, and Rizzo can pick him up some in the DH spot. I'm okay there. I can live with Verdugo out there. I don't have to go get Lewis Robert. The outfield's good enough. But second base and third base, can you get me Ryan McMahon from Colorado, please? He would be a perfect fit. And I don't know if Jazz Chisholm would work in the Yankee clubhouse or New York. I like the talent. I'm not sure the makeup works there, but I know Ryan McMahon works there.
Ooh, that's like that. I like that, Ryan McMahon. That'd be a great bat. What about out west? You talk about powerhouses. The Dodgers. There's some chinks in the armor right now. They're 3-7 their last 10 coming into the break. Losing Mookie Betts. It seems like they're beat up in that rotation. What's Andrew Friedman doing right now coming into the second half and the deadline coming up?
They've got a problem, Sean. There's no slam dunk. They're going to hold on and win this division. It's not a slam dunk. Let me tell you why. Guess who's on the injured list today? Tyler Glasnow, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw, Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin. All of them are on the IL. Let's talk about who's coming back. Glasnow's going to come back. He's going to be fine. Okay, not a problem. He'll be good to go after the break here. Yamamoto, we're not going to see him till mid-August at the earliest if the shoulder's okay. You just got to hope he's okay for September. Walker Buehler, when he comes back, I don't know what you're getting, Sean. I think you're going to get the same guy you saw earlier, and that's not good enough. Clayton Kershaw's got a capsule in the shoulder. He's 88 to 91. He'll throw the curveball change, but he may come back as just a reliever, to be honest with you. Bobby Miller's in the minor leagues, doesn't have command or control, is not ready. They got a starting pitching problem. Wait, the bottom half of the lineup, not good. Now, Max Muncy's going to come back. Betts will be back, so they'll be okay. But, Sean, at the end of the day, they need starting pitching. I would like a reliever. I would like an outfield bat. They got work to do. And by the way, if you get to October right now, the Phillies and Braves will beat the Dodgers because their starting pitching is not just better, significantly better. So even if you can hold on and win the division, which you should do, although it's not a slam dunk, you're going home early. It's going to be thanks for coming by. Hope you enjoyed the $1 billion you spent on 2 players because you're going home because Sale, Fried, and Morton are better than your guys. And the Phillies 1-5 is significantly better than your guys. So you're not a top 2 team in the league, regardless of record.
Wow. Wow. That even shines a brighter light to say, you know, they gotta figure something out because they could be in trouble. You actually think though somebody could catch them in the West? You think San Diego?
Hard, but I'm telling you, if Arizona's 3 pitchers come off the IL, right? Jordan Montgomery, Merrill Kelly, and Eduardo Rodriguez, if they come off the IL pitching up to their accustomed level, right? And you combine that with Zach Gallen, this rotation is really good. This is an elite defensive team. They've got great speed. They're the defending champions. Sean, do not count them out of being really good the last 2 months. Again, it's kind of like the Rangers. You know,
Right.
you need the pitchers to come off the IL and make a statement. But, I mean, you know, you get those 3 guys, no one's going to make trades any better than getting those 3 guys off the IL. Just like the Rangers are about to get DeGrom back in mid-August. He's throwing 98 in his last bullpen. And Tyler Mahle, his last rehab start was 96 with a breaking ball. He may be better than he was when we left him. You get that kind of pitching for the last 2 months and you got all your arms and you don't have any innings logged, that they can be difference making. So yeah, don't sleep on them. By the way, the Padres have a really good team and I'm not sure AJ Preller's done building it. So I think it'll be a bigger race than people think.
He'll do something.
Real quick. You're in on the Rangers. You think they're in? They're good.
They're a playoff team. Yeah, they're going to get in. Astros are going to win the division. Texas are going to finish second. And Seattle's going to go 1st to 3rd because they can't hit. They're 27th in the league in runs scored. And the only reason they're there is that their starting pitching 1-5 is the best in the American League. And by the way, if the Mariners can get in as a wild card team, they can run the table, but they got to score runs. I don't know how they're going to score runs.
Jimmy, do you love how the wild card has traded what teams do at the deadline? Or, you know, like, because a lot of teams are sitting here at 500. I'd like to go through some of the teams in a second, but do you love the fact that you know, if you're a GM and you're sitting at 48 and 48 right now, are you like, oh, what do we do here?
Okay, I don't care about the record. Okay, I care about games behind. That's all I care about. I could care less what the record is. It doesn't matter to me. I just got to get in the playoffs. If I get in the playoffs, I can run the table, right? Who was in the World Series last year that we covered? 2 wildcard teams, right? They have set this up where there's 2 seasons. There's the regular season, and if you win the most games in the regular season, we're going to make you sit 5 days and screw up the timing of all your hitters so that the lesser teams can beat you, all right? Of the 3 teams with the best records last year, 3 of the 4 teams got eliminated first round because of it. Okay, so just get me in. So we're looking at the National League right now, Case. 13 of the 15 teams, 13 of the 15 are within 3.5 games of the playoffs. They all got a shot. The only 2 that don't are Miami and Colorado. If I'm any of those teams, I'm going for it because any of them can get in. 3.5 games with 2 months to go. Let's go. Let's go.
Wow. I love that, man. I love that. What do you think of the card? I mean, let's look at the NL wild card because obviously the Braves are sitting where they're sitting right now. You know, they're way back of the Phillies, but St. Louis has finally made a run. They're 4 games over 500. And the Mets and Arizona. Can talk about the Cardinals a little bit and the Mets. You know, what do they need to do anything? Are they good where they're at? You know, can they hold on to that wild card? You know, what do you got on St. Louis and the Mets?
Okay, neither one are going to make the playoffs.
Wow.
The Mets are where they are because they're averaging 6.5 runs a game over the last 30 days. That's wonderful. I hope they're enjoying it. I am. I love Alonso and Lindor, and they're really fun, and they'll stay in the race to the very end. But when they get to September, their starting pitching isn't good enough to get them to October. They'll finish at 81 and 81, same number I predicted in March. That's where they'll finish. St. Louis Cardinals have overachieved. Let's give Oliver Moore his love because we gave him the hate last year. Give him the love this year. He's done a hell of a job. You look at the expected win-loss record of the Cardinals, he's far beyond that. He's a big reason why. And John Mozeliak is going to get a starting pitcher. It's not going to be Crochet or Skubal, but he's going to get a guy like Eric Fetty or Chris Bassett. He's going to get a starter. He's identified what he wants. He's going to get one more. And they got a good chance of getting there. But the Cincinnati Reds are going to surprise the baseball world. They're going to get the third wild card. And they're going to get in there. And I want you to keep in mind, if you look at expected one-loss records right now, the Reds are 2 games behind Milwaukee in expected one loss. They're better than anyone in the division but Milwaukee. And they've done it with so many injuries, right? Edwin Encarnacion-Strand gone for the year. We haven't even seen Matt McLain play yet. Friedel's been on the injured list twice. Noelvi Marte missed the first half of the season with his PED suspension. And their expected one loss right now is only 2 games behind Milwaukee. Let me tell you the big question coming into the season, could their young starters make a jump? And they did, right? Hunter Green did. Nick Lodolo did. Andrew Abbott did. So they got starting pitching there. They got an impact closer at the back end. Okay. Now it comes down to, can they score runs? Guess what? Matt McLain's going to come off the injured list.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Last year, he was their best player technically. If you want to get their best player technically. L.A. De La Cruz, obviously, best upside, future Hall of Famer, most athletic guy I've seen since Dion and Bo Jackson. Love him. But Matt McLain was their best player last year. He's coming back. Noelvi Marte, give him another 2 weeks. His timing will come back. This kid's a 300 hitter. That's what he gets. He can hit. So, Case, at the end of the day, the way I view the Cincinnati Reds is they're going to make a surprise run here. David Bell's going to get them in position to win. And we will be talking about them making the playoffs at game 162 in a 3-2 walk-off win.
Wow, man. I love that. And I think you're right. That team is good, but I agree with you. McLain was the reason, he's the heartbeat. He's kind of the gritty leader in there too, and he can flat out hit. So I love that pick. What about the Buccos, man? Is Skeens, Jones, Keller, is that enough for this team to get in on a wild card?
Okay. They're in the mix here. Look, this time of year, Case, with 2 weeks to go, and as a former player, you don't want to hear me say this, but I gotta throw some truth at you, okay? The general manager these next 2 weeks is just as important as the star player. It's only 2 weeks a year, right? That's it, the whole year. They shouldn't even be in the conversation except for 2 weeks a year, these 2 weeks. The general manager is just as important as Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge. Just as important as Corbin Burns and Tariq Skubal. That's what they are. If you want Pittsburgh to get into the wild card and they got a shot, there's no doubt in my mind, you got to go get 2 bats. Not one, you got to go get 2 bats. Ben Cherington has to show us what he can do because they've got the 3 starters and they got veteran guys for the 4th and 5th. They got a good bullpen. They can't score runs. You need more offense. And I'm not asking you to go get Lewis Robert. I know that's not happening, but I am asking you to get Jazz Chisholm. I am asking you to get Brent Rooker. I am asking you to get Lane Thomas. I am asking you to care. I'm asking you to care. I'm asking you to trade a couple of prospects that you don't want to trade. Pittsburgh fans deserve it. We have excitement back there for the first time in a long time. Permane Brothers sandwiches are overrated. You and I. But if you're going to have the French fries and the coleslaw, I want to see it in a winning game because then the Permane Brothers taste really good. So that's what I want to do, Case. I want to go get a couple of bats. I'm asking Ben to do it. And if he does that, they have just as good a shot as everyone else in the division, not named Milwaukee.
Wow, I love that, man. And then believe me, the Pirate fans that are listening to this, they love those names you threw out there, and they know the Buccos need at least 2 more bats too. I want to go to the AL wild card real quick, Jimmy. And touch on a couple teams we haven't touched on. What do you got on the Minnesota Twins and the Boston Red Sox right now?
Love them both. First of all, the Red Sox are legit.
Yeah.
Torres is one of the best managers in baseball. He always overachieves with the teams that he has. His communication skills, motivation skills, and discipline ability is absolutely incredible. We've seen him win a world championship in there, but more importantly, he just overachieves. The development of Jarren Duran has been amazing. The development of Rafaela has been incredible. They've been doing it without Tristan Casas, who will return. They've got Marcelo Mayer sitting in the minor leagues that looks to me like he's finally ready, finally hitting 300, putting it all together. This Red Sox team has the pitching. The leadership of Craig Breslow and Andrew Bailey has been amazing. I was skeptical of throwing all secondary pitches and it working and not blowing out. I still think some of their pitchers are going to blow out. But I'm just telling you, it's working. I believe in what they're doing as long as they can keep them healthy. They look like a playoff team, and I got to be honest with you, if I'm the Yankees, I'd be a little bit worried about that in my rearview mirror. I really would be. All right, in terms of Minnesota, fascinating team. I can see them winning the division. I can see them getting a wild card berth, and I can see them missing the playoffs. Here's the key to them is health. Can they stay healthy? Byron Buxton is healthy over the last couple of weeks, heading into the All-Star break, and he looks like Eric Davis. Can he be that guy the rest of the way? Or is he going to go back on the IL like he does every year? I don't know the answer, but if he can be Eric Davis the next 2 months, okay. Can Royce Lewis stay healthy? I don't know. He's back on the IL again. I'll tell you one thing. When he's playing and healthy, he's an MVP candidate. I'm not lying.
I agree.
He's an MVP player.
I agree.
He's that good. Okay. So superstar. That's what Royce Lewis is. Brooks Lee comes up, boom, hits a couple of home runs. I love Brooks Lee. He was there when they picked. So can Buxton, Lee, and Lewis stay healthy for 2 months? I'll tell you one thing. Thank you, Luis Ariz. If you're a Twins fan, write a thank you note to Luis Ariz and mail it to San Diego. His conversation he had with Carlos Correa in the offseason about hitting changed this guy. Carlos Correa is now a 300 hitter because of his conversation with Ariz. Do you realize Carlos Correa right now is the best version we've seen since we were drinking champagne with him on the field, winning a world championship with Houston in his prime years, with or without hitting the garbage cans? Carlos Correa is right now. So they have put themselves. Jose Miranda got hits in how many at bats? 11 straight. I love that swing. Level swing like Case, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody wants the launch angle.
Yeah.
He's got a level swing, baby. 11 straight hit. Look, they have the potential. Starting pitching, they need one more, okay? So Thad Levine, Derek Falvey, good friends of mine. I love them both. They got to go get a starter. I still like Cleveland winning the division, but they got a shot. They're going to be in the mix. It's going to be a race.
Wow. Wow, this is so good, Jimmy. You are so good, dude. Are the Royals for real? Do they have enough right now to win?
No. Look, I know Stephen Vogt's going to be manager of the year in the American League. He's done an unbelievable job. Just incredible. To replace Tito Francona with Stephen Vogt, congratulations. Matt Quachero's not going to win the award because of how good Vogt has been. He's not going to win the award because how great Alex Cora has been. But Matt Quachero in most years would be manager of the year candidate. How he took that team and put him here is amazing. Now, the key for this team being here has been the fact they don't strike out. They put the ball in play. They move the chains, right? They're that quarterback that we're going to do that 10-yard game, but not the 40-yard game. We're just going to go 10-yard. Kenny Stabler, the Raiders, remember? He's just flicking off on the sideline. That's what the Royals are. That's what they do. Bobby Witt Jr. is the best player in baseball. Yeah, I said it. Sorry about that. He just is. He does everything on the field. He's really fun. Salvador Perez is having an all-star year. Unbelievable what he's been able to do. I love the first baseman, Pasquantino. Brings a lot of energy, power, loves the game, works hard. After those three guys, they don't have much. Michael Garcia's pretty good hitter. I like him a little bit. MJ Melendez can't hit a breaking ball. Didn't 3 years ago, didn't last year. Isn't going to hit it this year. They don't have enough offense. And the starting pitching overachieved in the first half. Seth Lugo, all-star, great. Michael Wacha, love what I saw. Brady Singer's getting better. This is not a playoff team. They can beat the Tigers and finish in third, though, and that's still a good year. And by the way, I think they can win more than they lose, but they're going to go this way.
Wow, interesting. I love your take, man. Interesting. One last thing I want to ask: if you're the GM of the Mets, are you moving Pete Alonso?
No, I can't move Pete. Now, I'm going to say that on one side of my mouth. On the other side of my mouth, I'm going to listen to offers. Okay? All right. So publicly, I'm not going to move you. Privately, I'm not going to move you, but I'm going to listen. Look, there's two teams, Seattle and Houston, that want first baseman. They want Alonso or Guerrero or Christian Walker, right? Those are the three that those two teams want. Okay. Arizona's going to stay in it. You're not getting Walker. I don't think Toronto has the balls to trade Guerrero, even though they should. I think they're going to worry about their jobs to do that. And Alonso, here's the thing that I was told, and I kind of agree with it. If you trade Alonso, you're going to make it more difficult to sign him as a free agent. You hold on to him and you keep him and you keep giving him love and you keep telling him you want to sign him, when he gets to the market and realizes he's not going to get 300 million, and you're willing to pay more than anyone else, you're going to probably get to keep him. But if you trade him and he goes somewhere else, and he all of a sudden loves Houston, and all of a sudden he sees what it's like to have Tucker and Alvarez being an Alvarez Tucker sandwich, and you're the thing in the middle, you might want to stay there. Do I really want to put him there where he might want to stay, or do I hold on? And besides that, the Mets are going to be in the race because the National League is all parity, so you can't move them. So the answer is no.
Okay. Wow.
Wait, can I just jump in one more time real quick? Are you comfortable making your World Series prediction yet? Are you locked in?
Yeah. No, I'll make it today, subject to change based on how it changes. Philadelphia Phillies win it in 6 over the Baltimore Orioles. Phillies have the best team in baseball. It's not even close. And by the way, they may get a center fielder. They may get Robert or Chisholm or McCarthy, and they're going to get a right-hand hitting platoon guy to go with Marsh and left. That may be Lane Thomas. That might be Mark Canha. They'll make a smaller deal, maybe Tommy Pham, but they'll get one of those to platoon and left, and he's going to get a center fielder. But let me tell you this: if they do nothing, they're the best team in baseball. Not close.
Wow. Jimmy Bowden, that's a round of applause. That was absolutely incredible. If you're a baseball fan, we're gonna lock into this episode because that was incredible. But Jimmy, I appreciate it, dude. I appreciate your time. More importantly, appreciate your friendship, man. I loved getting together when last year when I was with the Yankees in Chinch. We got together, me, Booney, and Joy, and Sarah, and Jimmy for a nice dinner in Miami, which was great, man.
Nice.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. We did Prime 112, and it was fun, except when Aaron Judge sent us the tequila shots. That's not putting me over, to be honest with you. But yeah, drinking Opus 1 with Booney was a lot of fun. And in case you eating both my entree and my dessert, it was really fun to realize that you could still eat like you did in your 20s. It was fun. Hey,
it was a high-end place, Jimmy. You were buying. I'm like, give me the other dessert, too. Bring the second dessert, please, you know? Dude, you're the best. Absolute best thing. Hey, where can our listeners find you?
All right, so you can find me, you can watch me on TV at CBS Sports HQ. You can listen to me on MLB Network Radio on Sirius XM, and you can read me in The Athletic, which you need to do because a lot of the good stuff I get directly from the GMs is all over that. So click on and read some articles. And for people that don't know what I do, look, my niche is just representing front offices, like the 30 GMs. I just represent getting the truth to the listeners and to the fans and having fun. You know, one of the fun parts about baseball, besides the games that are played, are the front office trades, the free agent signings. That's all I do. That's my niche. It's a unique niche. It's different than every other insider and analyst. It's what I do. So have some fun with me because I like to engage with my readers. We do trade ideas back and forth, and I hope you'll read and engage with me and have fun.
Oh, it's great, man. Well, we can't wait to check you out, man. And you're right, that stuff you do on the Athletic is really incredible stuff. And we hope you have you on the mayor's office again here soon, brother. Maybe as we come down towards the stretch in September.
Look forward to it, Case. Always, I love you. Give my best to Sarah and the kids. And Jim Leland Sunday, baby. Let's give him some love.
Let's do it. Are you gonna be in Cooperstown?
I'm not going to be in Cooperstown. I got to do the trade deadline, Case. I can't move. I got to stay here.
You've got to be locked in.
My heart and soul will be there for Jimmy Leland, with or without his cigarette smoke.
I'm going to be there Sunday for the induction to see Leland, and pretty cool too to watch Helton and Maurer, Belcher, guys I played against. It'll be fun. But Jimmy Leland, hopefully he has a couple heaters for all of us at Cooperstown, and Cooperstown better cut of it. Jimmy, we'll talk to you soon, brother. You are the best. I love you. Thanks for your time. Tell Joy and the kids hi, please.
Will do.
Okay, see you, big man.